What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. We've got the KIZUNA Clash coming up very shortly, starting December 19th, 1900 PST time. And in this event, this is where we can get our hands on the Super Evolution Skulls for V2 Shanks. And this guy's pretty good. I think he's got some really nice buffs, and I think he's going to be a really great asset to everyone's account. Remember, you can get copies for free just by playing the recent Pirate Rumble season. And of course, this is his Super Evolution right here. We have already talked about him in a previous video, and as I said, I think he's a pretty good buff. Unfortunately, did not receive a super type or a super class, which I think is a pretty big missed opportunity there. But this character is going to actually be the boss fight. He's going to be the boss that we go up against in this event. So unfortunately, no free-to-play KIZUNA character this month. But make sure to go ahead and play the event, get those Super Evolution Skulls, because it's going to be a couple of months before they'll be available in the KIZUNA exchange. So without further ado, let's go ahead and show a couple of teams versus each boss variation to get yourself prepared for this KIZUNA Clash. So the first fight that we're going to go up against is the Strength boss, and this is the first team that we have, which is going to be a mono slasher team, using Enmazor as our main captain, mainly due to one massive gimmick that occurs on Battle 3, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But for Battle 2, there's going to be 5 turns of attack down, which we're removing just via the supports on this crew. There's also a barrier. Now, the barrier can be random, where it's either a tandem slot barrier or a Wano slot barrier, and it does last for 2 turns, which is pretty frustrating. Well, you're going to be using the Treasure Map Mihawk, which was the first Treasure Map character to ever release in this game. With his level limit break, he actually has an effect that can remove 2 turns of barriers, plus gives us a chain boundary, or a chain lock, and also gives us an orb boost for 2 turns. So he gives us massive damage whilst also removing the barrier. We do have 2 Zoras, one is our captain, one is our friend, so we can actually use one of them on this stage as well. One thing I guess I should probably mention is obviously the way that Enmazor was kind of built. We're trying to consume 10 Wano slots before we reach the final stage. Hiyori is a vital character in this team because not only does she help us remove some gimmicks on the final stage, but she also has this crewmate ability that sets all slots to Wano at the start of the quest, so we want to try and consume as many of them as possible. And the other thing about this team is we're using Okiku. So the cool thing about Okiku is that not only being a quick slasher, so we get good benefits because of that, this character does have double special launch, so we can use this character on stage 1 to lock our slots for 1 turn, so we can keep those Wano slots for all through stage 1, consume as many of those Wano slots as you possibly can. Obviously 5 would be the best case scenario, but also gives a color affinity boost to quick and int characters, so our quick slashes are going to be doing way more damage. And because it is double special launch, we can use one on stage 1 to keep the slots, we can use the other one on the final boss stage to give us a color affinity boost. It just works out really well. So stage 2, we will still have the Wano slots thanks to the Okiku special, consume those Wano slots as well, and then when we reach the boss stage, we should have Enmazor's max capacity captain. Now we are inflicted with like 9 turns of despair. It does become 10 turns of despair after level 31, so with sockets it goes down to 7. Hiyori on this crew with her special does remove 7 turns of despair, which works out perfectly. Now another thing is that we are inflicted with special reverse after level 31, which is where we'd use the HAIRED special to not only deal with the special reverse, but she switches into the captain position and we can use her captain ability to bypass enemy defensive effects, because there's 5 turns of damage threshold, 6 turns after level 31, and it just makes it a lot easier if you have a character that can bypass it, rather than actually bringing a dedicated character that can remove that specific debuff, because HAIRED deals with the special reverse and also allows us to bypass the damage threshold. So this actually works out pretty well, and due to the max capacity Zoro captain, we can use his ability to amplify the damage limiter that is inflicted on the enemy side of the crew, so we can just kill in 1 turn, where normally you would have to kill over 2 turns due to that damage limiter. So I think Enmazor is going to be a pretty valid option in this quest, so long as you have Hiyori specifically, because if you don't have her, it's very hard to use Enmazor in short form content. The next team that we have is going to be our shooter team versus the strength variation. So shooters are also characters that receive cooldowns here, so they work out pretty well. Now battle 2, we're inflicted with 5 turns of attack down again, as we said. The Boa Hancock on this team is going to remove that, as well as give us a chain lock. But another thing is we have the support of Bobbin attached to Boa Hancock, which says when we're inflicted with attack down, it does change adjacent slots into matching, so we just get more damage on that stage. We also have 2 Ben Beckman Lucky Roos, so we can use one of them on this stage, and that will give us also like buffed orb boost, and also the chain boundary effect. So we should have a pretty good amount of damage on stage 2. When we move on to the final boss stage, of course, we have a lot of different things going on. Putting on the crew deals with the special reverse, and also deals with the despair. However, after level 31, we do have to have the Valentine Nami support attached to Usopp and Yasop, which will allow us to remove an additional turn of despair for us. Usopp, Yasop are great because they give us the guaranteed conditional boost and the base attack boost. And then another thing on this crew is Wiper. Now, Wiper has a really cool special that gives us a full board of tandem slots, as well as giving color affinity boosts. But the other thing why that's good is because that allows us to trigger the super tandem of Ben Beckman and Lucky Roo. And also we have the super type, or the super class of Ben Beckman Lucky Roo, which gives us 2 turns of an attack buff, which works really well. So we get attack boost, we'll have all boost from Ben Beckman Lucky Roo, we'll have chain boundary. Of course, we only have the conditional boost and the base attack boost for 1 turn, but it's not really that big of a deal because we will still get access to the super tandem. We do have the Jinbei attached to Wiper, so it will lock free spirit character slots so that Usopp and Yasop can keep their super tandem slot, which is going to, the tandem slot specifically to trigger the super tandem, so we can have that for multiple turns as well. So even though this will take multiple turns to kill due to the damage limiter, this should still be able to get the job done pretty comfortably, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun team to use. I can go ahead and move on to the next boss, which is one of the weirdest bosses I've seen in a KIZUNA clash, which is going to be the quick boss. However, it does label it as a quick boss, but it's more than just a quick boss, as we'll talk about in just a moment. So this is the team that we're using here, which is, it looks like something you'd see on a super boss, but we're using the double gear 5s, one of them 6-star, one of them being the 6-star plus. We've also got Sanji on the crew, which is mainly just for pure damage. Robin also pretty much just for pure damage. The thing about this team is that like the 2 Gear 5 captains kind of carry really, really hard in this quest, so it makes things a lot easier. But you'll see that on Battle 2, you're inflicted with Burn, but there's also a Hunger debuff, which we can remove because we've got the Ace and Yamato character. And if you kill stage 2, you get dealt 100,000 damage. So the idea with this team is that we just use the 6-star plus Luffy special on stage 2 because it really doesn't matter. And then we can just kill. We're going to take 100,000 damage, we'll take burn damage, but we'll revive due to the Gear 5 captain ability. When we move on to the final stage, you do see the enemy's HP bar can be quick, dex, psi, dex, and quick again. So it scales every 20% threshold, the color of the boss will change, which is why someone with super effective damage is going to be super ideal in this content, hence why we're opting to use 6-star plus Gear 5 Luffy with a full team of every single color. So ideally we'd also have the super swap here of the Ace and Yamato, which would change into a strength character, triggering the ability to have one of every color on the team, which is pretty important. And with that, we would also get Chain Boundary from Sanji, which we'd want to use that before Ace and Yamato, of course. They also give base attack boost, which is a lot of damage. There is something very, very annoying in this quest, though, and that is that there is an Intimidate if you're inflicted with an orb boost, so that's frustrating. But it is what it is. I have Kid on this team to enable an orb boost because we'll have already an attack boost from Ace and Yamato. But ideally you could just switch that with any int character that is an orb booster. Remember, if you have one of every color, that Gear 5 Luffy 6-star plus makes any boost for a specific type or class go for everyone instead. So you have a lot of flexibility so long as the character is fighter, free spirit, or striker, so that the character receives cooldown at the start of the quest. And you see a bunch of different debuffs. There's bind, there's damage reduction, and then it gets buffed further. And there's also damage threshold, but of course if you're using 6-star Luffy, you bypass that with his captain ability. So as I said, the 2 Gear 5 hybrids, fantastic for this content. You just have to build the rest of the characters to give you the damage that you will require on the final stage. Secondary team that we have for the quick labeled fight is going to be this one here, which is a very, very obscure looking team, but I think it actually should work pretty well. So we're going to be using Bullet as the captain because he is super effective against all types, so we don't really care what color the boss is, and we're basically just trying to stack as much damage on Bullet as we can, just so that he is the heavy hitter, we can kill with that super effective damage, right? So on Battle 2, there is the burn and there's the hunger and stuff, but that's why we have V2 Shirahoshi Mancherry. We can use their switch effect and then their special, which will allow us to overheal. We heal a bunch, and then we also remove the burn, so that when the death hit occurs when we kill the boss, it should not kill us. And then of course, when we reach the actual final boss stage, we would ideally use Toki on that stage too as well, targeting on Bullet so that he gets that massive attack boost. Unfortunately, there is Intimidate for that slot effect boost, so I assume that Toki's orb boost will be removed. Luckily though, Carrot, friend captain here, allowing us to bypass defensive effects, which is the main reason why she is here, but also having the capabilities for a multi-turn orb boost. So even though Toki's orb boost won't be activated, we're still going to have a decent orb boost nonetheless. And of course, we also have Vivi on the crew, but Vivi is mainly here because it enables us to use an orb lock on stage 2. We get the full board of slots, and then we can carry the orb buff or all those matching slots into the last stage because we don't really have any other characters that manipulate slots around. So we also have, as we said, Carrot to bypass all the defensive effects, which is great. There is a lot of bind that occurs though. On the left side of your crew, you're inflicted with 9 turns of bind. It does become quite a lot later on, right? So we've got the support of Conjurer attached to Toki, which removes 2 turns of bind. We also remove an additional 3 with our sockets, making it go all the way down to 5 turns when it would be 10 after level 31. And then the Robin special removes 5 turns of bind. And then it also gives a color affinity boost to our fighter characters and our free spirit characters. Bullet is a fighter, so he gets his color affinity. And then we also have the Mr. 1 support attached to Robin, just because it gives us a chain boost. That's basically all it does. Well, it obviously has some utility, but the main reason why it's here is just for the damage increase. So this is an interesting team. I don't know what the max capacity of damage this could possibly reach. If there's no normal attacks only, that would make the team even better. There is not listed that there's any normal attacks only, but there typically always is. But I think this is going to be an interesting team to see how it works. Bullet special as well, by the way, does give base attack boost to himself, so that's another option. There's a couple of different things you could do. We'll see how it runs. I think the Gear 5 team will be better, obviously, but this will be an interesting one to use. And finally, we can talk about the final boss, which is the Int labeled boss, where Strength, Dex, and Psi all receive cooldown here. Really frustrating here on stage 2 because you hit with an 80% health cut, you get 2 turns of recovery bind, and then there's also resilience that you have to deal with. So on this team, we are going to be using Shirahoshi because V1 Shirahoshi does have recovery bind, her special, massive amount of heals, which will put us back to full, and we get a full board of rainbow slots, which is dope, but also the resilience that you have to deal with. So we're going to be using Legend Momo because Legend Momo gives us 4 turns of attack boost to Free Spirit and Slasher, which majority of the team is either Free Spirit or Slasher, and also gives the end of turn damage, which allows us to get around to the resilience. And then on the final boss stage, there's a really big Intimidate where if you have an attack boost, base attack boost, or an orb boost, -1 turn of it. So you need to make sure that the buffs that you have last for more than 1 turn, or you have 3 turns of buffs on stage 2 and carry that into the final boss stage. So we have Momo's attack boost that we used on stage 2 that will carry into the final stage. The Anniversary Shanks that we're using on this team is a 2-turn orb booster, so that will still activate. There's also Special Reverse, which gets up to 2 turns of Special Reverse post level 31. Shanks' captain ability resists that. But here's the real kicker, right? Because there is an interrupt where if you have 90% or less HP, that is where the enemy will inflict a tap limit. You can only tap twice for the turn, which is terrible. So they really want you to somehow heal back the damage that you lost from the preemptive attack of stage 2. If you don't do that, the damage that you do will be severely nerfed. You need to find a healer before you reach the final stage. Now, there is also another interrupt where if you activate a conditional boost, your beneficial effects are removed. So either have someone that can resist the removal of beneficial effects, such as Gold Roger, or don't use a conditional boost, or have a conditional boost in a super type or in a support. So those are other ways you can get around that. There is 8 turns of despair as well, which is why we have the Rockstar on the crew, also allowing us to trigger the super class of Shanks. And then we have the Luffy Straw Hat characters, the Psy Straw Hats, who also remove the damage reduction for us, but also give color affinity boost. So Straw Hats give color affinity, Shanks gives orb boost, Momo gives an attack boost. So it's interesting, and of course Shanks with his super class does give a chain tap timing bonus as well. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm not 100% sure on how this is going to work, but I think this team is not going to work in super deep levels. Like, I feel like this will work at least until level 50 plus, but we'll see how things go. But we've got one more team to talk about before we wrap up this video. And then the final team here is going to be the double Gear 5 hybrid once again. It's going to be really solid here. So the way that this team's going to work is that on stage 2, we're going to be using the Gear 5 6+ special, which activates Momo support. End of turn damage allows us to get around the resilience. The recovery bind is removed with the chopper, and then the chopper special will also heal back our HP back to full, which is great. Now the other key thing here is that we also have like the 2 Gear 5s. We would actually use both of their specials on this stage. Reason for that is because we would then use the special of Zora and the special of Brook. So we're basically using almost all the specials on this stage. But what this does is that the attack and orb boost of both Gear 5s are extended by 2 turns due to the specials of Brook and Zora. So this means that the massive attack and orb boost from both of these Gear 5s are going to be carried into that next stage, which is massive. And then, of course, when you actually reach the final boss stage, we don't really have any other specials to launch. You have Luffy's superclass, and then you could also use the Sanji for the chain boundary, chain boost mechanics, which is really, really strong. But yeah, we'll see how this one goes moving forward. It's going to be interesting to see how it actually works, but it's going to be a really, really fun team to use. Whenever you can use the Gear 5s, it's always going to be a really, really fun way to beat the content. With all that being said, that's going to wrap it up for me. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. What kind of teams are you aiming to run in this upcoming KIZUNA Clash versus Shanks? And of course, it is going to be going live on December 19th. When it does go live, I'll bring you guys a video in regards to some other things that's going on and what kind of teams we can potentially build for this one. Remember, it's not a super boss, so you don't have to go above and beyond on using all of your KIZUNA potions, but that is going to wrap it up for me. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.